All right. Prayer Therapy by William R. Parker, property of the Psychic Studies Institute, Incorporated. As you can see here, I thought that was cute. I have several items from them. William R. Parker, PhD, 1827 West Cliff Drive, Newport Beach, California, 92660. Copyright 1969 by W. R. Parker, PhD. Prayer Therapy by William R. Parker, PhD. Table of Contents. Introduction, Chapter 1, Fear. Chapter 2, Guilt. Chapter 3, Inferiority Feelings. Chapter 4, Misguided Love. Chapter 5, Make Prayer a Dialogue. Chapter 6, Make Prayer Positive. Chapter 7, Make Prayer a Practice in Honesty. Chapter 8, Make Prayer a Regular Activity. Conclusion. There are about 52 pages in here. Oh, in the back there's a cassette tapes advertisement. That's neat. 2 relaxation/meditation tapes. Relaxation meditation with a lecture entitled Programming Your Life for Good on the Other Side. Relaxation meditation, the self-role conflict, the mature person, reality, responsibility, and freedom. How we get into trouble and out. Prayer therapy with 5 live lectures and a meditation. Cost $7.95 each. 6 tapes on children's problems. Asthma. Asthma. I haven't been looking at. Maybe I have that. 3 problem areas: stuttering, discipline, bedwetting, acne. Cost $7.95 each. Creative weight control, a 2-part tape which is being used successfully in helping overweight people get to the cause of their problem and help them solve it. Cost $10. You may order the above tapes from William R. Parker, PhD, 1827 West Cliff Drive, Newport Beach, California, 92660. All California residents add 5% sales tax. Oh, I'm sure they will. Would you like to know yourself better? Dr. William R. Parker, author of Prayer Can Change Your Life, offers you a personality inventory by mail, or for members of a prayer therapy group. The Emotional Maturity Scale. Would you like to know about the areas of your life that might be causing you to behave in a way that makes you unhappy? These areas, with the appropriate common term hang-ups, cause tension, worry, misery, and disorders, and make us ineffective individuals. The Emotional Maturity Scale measures the following 12 areas of personality: aloneness and isolation, your ability to relate creatively to your environment; religion, the maturity of your sense of religion; social, your ability to relate to others; authority figures, your ability to relate to authority figures; discipline, your ability to discipline yourself and others; escape mechanisms, your ability to face reality; play, the maturity of your attitude toward work and play; sex, the maturity of your attitude toward sex; responsibility, the maturity of your sense of responsibility; hostility, your ability to handle your aggression creatively; depression, the degree in which you turn things in upon yourself, which is the cause of depression; guilt, the degree in which you punish yourself by feeling guilty. We mail you the test when it is the test. Oh, that's right. It's personality test. When we mail you the test, when it is returned, we score and evaluate it. The findings are then mailed to you, usually 3 a week, until all 12 findings are received. Each category is explained fully, 2 or 3 full typewritten pages. At the end of the explanation, your scale or rating on that specific area is noted. A real opportunity to discover something vital about yourself. The cost is $20. $20. Interesting. Introduction. The following chapters are an outgrowth of an experiment combining psychology and religion. Funds for this research project were given by the Religion in Education Foundation. The primary purpose of the experiment was to determine what part, if any, religion, more specifically prayer, might play in the rehabilitation of personality. 3 separate groups were used. All participants were given a battery of tests at the beginning and end of the project. The length of the experimental project was 1 year. The battery of tests include the Rorschach, Sondhi, information about yourself, mimeographed form, and draw a picture test. The battery of tests were given by a skilled tester and in no way connected with the project. The first group simply agreed to pray regularly, preferably the last thing at night before they retired. No specific techniques were suggested. The second had individual counseling with no mention of prayer or religion, with the counseling on a non-directive basis. The third group met in group therapy once a week for a 2-hour session. In addition to the meeting, each member of the group received in a sealed envelope a statement showing some detrimental aspect of their personality. They were to work out as best they could through regular prayer periods this aspect of personality that was detrimental. At the end of the experiment, the tester made an evaluation of the progress each person had made. He arbitrarily assigned a percentage improvement if any, and it indicated if regression in any single case had taken place. The findings showed that those using prayer alone as a therapy made the least progress. The group getting individual therapy made considerable progress, but not quite as great as those in group prayer therapy. The significant thing seemed to be that group prayer therapy was not only more effective, but that the same number of individuals could be helped more adequately with less than 1/4 of the time spent on the part of the therapist, which could enable the therapist to help many more people without adding to his clinic hour load. Might be interesting to include here a few of the statements those in group prayer therapy received in their sealed envelopes. Following statements were given to separate individuals. He dare not really evaluate himself, lacks confidence in himself, talks with too many people about his problems, and does not wish to face his problems, almost masochistic in his desire to evade his personal responsibility for his own actions. When there is a negative feeling, she must punish herself. She cannot feel right in being critical, therefore self punishment is needed. There is a real fear of people. This at times reaches undue and unreasonable proportions. She is therefore overly critical of people, but she must take it out on herself. She is inhibited and afraid to express these feelings. Sibling rivalry seems to never have been dissipated in this man. With the advent of marriage, with its traumas, with the birth of children, with the emotional loss of all the attention that a wife can give, he has reverted to a childhood need without expression or understanding of being rejected once more. It would appear from our findings that in addition to the experimental scientific techniques, that prayer should not only be added as a supplement, but that it may be a most important tool in the reconstruction of man's personality. That mankind has let go possibly the greatest technique of the ages is being demonstrated daily. Dr. Cabot, once professor of social ethics at Harvard Medical School, by the pastor. This could be done more effectively by the pastor if the pastor himself were possibly more free from the detrimental aspects of his own personality. What are the detrimental aspects of personality? They are fear, inferiority feelings, guilt, and misguided love. In parentheses, hate. An analysis of man's total nature in the light of scientific principles reveals these problems have proved extremely disturbing to the development and maintenance of a healthy personality. A thorough examination and understanding of these detrimental aspects could enable us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, through prayer. After the analysis of personality from the standpoint of the detrimental aspects, specific techniques of prayer for the relief of these symptoms will be suggested. We must free or start the process of freeing our minds of the negative aspects, however, because as Edna St. Vincent Millay has said, the troubled mind is a troublemaker. Ooh, that was actually pretty good saying. Chapter 1, Fear. One of the first problems to be faced by each of us is fear. It is a well-known medical principle that fear reacts on the endocrine glands, causing a dysfunction of the whole system. Generally speaking, we are born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. By the time we reach maturity, we may have accumulated dozens of fears. These include fear of the dark, fear of high places, fear of snakes, fear of people, fear of closed spaces, fear of going to sleep, fear of water, fear of death, and so on. Of all the things the neurotic is most fearful of, the fear of his own thoughts should head the list. He cannot afford to think of himself or see himself as he actually is. He denies certain thoughts and certain feelings. Inner honesty is too painful. This denial is known as ego protection. This ego protection may keep an individual prisoner. There are doors within the mind that are kept closed. The skeletons in the closet must not be seen by others or by the conscious mind of the individual housing the skeletons. The doors are free to swing outward to the conscious or inward to the subconscious. Energy from the conscious side is used to lean against the door that is constantly being pushed by the subconscious. The first job in overcoming this fear of one's own thoughts is to recognize psychologically that pushing one's own thoughts down, submerging them, is not a very adequate way to attempt to get rid of them. Why is the ego so defensive? Why do we have a tendency to put ourselves in the best possible light? The natural spontaneous desires in early childhood came in conflict with the environment. A child starts building an ego, and about the same time starts to build a superego, conscience. The ego becomes the defense against the environment. Since parents play the greatest part in a child's life during the formative years, almost all our reactions stem from our attitude toward our parents. It is difficult, if not impossible, for us to be honest with ourselves. We have been told since early childhood to be careful of what we say. We learn very early in life that if we say some things, say what we really feel, that we will likely get into trouble. It is impossible for us to go through a day with being absolutely honest. Obviously, it is more difficult for us to be unconsciously dishonest. The basis of 90% of our fears are our own wishes, that is, our own projections, coming back to us. We wish something would happen, and it comes back to us as a fear. The fears will seem greater, more horrible, more intolerable. Whatever fear it is, then, that possesses us, it must be realized that it is magnified, that it will seem to be worse than was actually the case in the beginning. Most of us has fears because of our own hostile, aggressive acts. As hate and resentment goes out from us, so hate and resentment comes back to us, and we are possessed with fears. We are afraid of the consequences of our own thoughts. A young boy of 10 coming to our clinic was asked what he would like for his birthday. He said he would like a pair of pliers so his father could pull his ears off. In reality, the boy wanted to do this to his father. His hatred for his father had come back to him as a fear. A person's fear is tied up and intertwined with his aggressive impulses which he harbors against his parents or others. Fears are a pre-symptomatic warning. When fears come to an individual, he will react in one of two ways. He may push the fear out of his conscious mind, or he may develop a symptom. Pushing fears out of the conscious mind merely suppresses them. His friends and family will likely say he is more grown up, more mature, more thoughtful, not so scatterbrained. In order to cope with his feelings, he may develop a symptom such as stuttering, abdominal pain, high blood pressure, a tic, an allergy, or perhaps turn to drink. The symptom is not as dangerous or as damaging to the personality as the suppression of the fears. Fear is the motivating power behind all suppressions and repressions. Guilty fears, the fear of being found out, of being exposed, of being humiliated, commonly referred to as anxiety neurosis, are very damaging to personality. Dr. Harry Emerson Fosdick, of primary importance in dealing with fear is the need of getting out into the open the object of our dread and frankly facing it. Human life is full of secret fears, thrust in the attics and dark corners of personality. People who are fearful often become inactive. The imagination of the inactive person is thus in freewheeling. There is no limit to what he will conjure up with his mind. In trying to analyze our moods and behavior, an impasse may be reached because of fear. If we are fearful of ideas, we tend to avoid them. Fear may keep us from bringing our problems into conscious light. John Dollard has listed 7 types of foolish fears: fear of failure, sex, self defense, trusting others, thinking, speaking, being alone. Footnote. That's just about where it was published. Mr. Dollard goes on to show that these fears are not only foolish, but are quite common. Let us examine each of them a little more closely. Fear of failure, inwardly thinking that one is inferior, small, or weak, causes some not to try to give or to give up easily. All of us have such feelings some of the time, and they are detrimental to personality. Fear of sex causes many to suffer real pain. So much of our training has been to fear anything and everything that has to do with sex feelings. A great number of married people are in reality afraid of sex and do not take advantage of the freedom which could be indulged in. In all probability, these people were punished in childhood for acts that may have been no more than sexual curiosities. A husband or wife may constitute for the other a sexual temptation. Fears which are tied to our drives and impulses are hard to overcome because they are not recognized for what they are. When drive mounts, fear mounts. If an adult now fearful of sex was punished as a child for sex curiosity or exploration, the impulse in the adult is still tied to the fear and anger provided when a child. A drive that was punished at some former time will usually have fear attached to it. To overcome the foolish fear of sex, the individual must determine it is fear that is causing this behavior and hereby weed out all the disguises. The identification of the impulse that gives rise to fear logically follows. Either responding wholesomely or redirecting this drive is then in order. These steps can reduce the fear to a minimum or eventually eliminate it altogether. The fear of self defense is failure to defend one's own rights and to insist on a fair share of things. Those suffering from the fear of self defense are usually the long suffering type and are those who suffer in silence. They were undoubtedly punished for every type of naughtiness in childhood. Their aggressive behavior was met with a counter-aggression, and their very size made it impossible for them to defend themselves. They therefore lost self-respect and developed a fear of self-defense. The fear of trusting others may be heard repeatedly in our dealings in human relations. Don't depend on others, and you won't be disappointed. Or if you want something done, do it yourself. Those who have the fear of trusting others fear that they would not be rewarded if they did trust each other. Such thinking leads one not to deal too intimately with others, and because he has fewer friends, he feels justified in his feelings. All of us have undoubtedly experienced the fear of speaking at some time or another. We've been told to be careful what we say from early childhood. We actually become afraid we may reveal something through speech for which we might be punished. We cannot whisper in school, and if we do and are caught, we are punished. Since speech is a means of revealing the person, it is understandable how fear around speech would arise. The fear of thinking is similar to the fear of speaking. We've also been told to be careful of our thoughts. Many people fear thinking and would have other people do it for them. Those who have a fear of thinking are submissive and often quite suggestible. Those who fear thinking readily submit to a dictator who promises to solve all their problems, thus eliminating their fear. The fear of being alone is probably the most common way of any of the common of any of the others just discussed. As children, we were alone at times in our rooms. Being isolated in a room for punishment has been the experience of many. Threats of abandonment are quite common. The fact that sex temptations often come when a person is alone gives rise to fear, and we seek our companions to alleviate the fear. The wise person will admit the fears he does recognize. The admission of them is the beginning of a solution without fear. Fears confessed and talked out in prayer constantly renew the mind. Through prayer, we can go from fear to faith, faith in something greater than ourselves that can guide us and lift us out of our present trouble. Pathological fears do the real damage. They drain the body of needed energy and often cause the person to expend more energy than he replenishes, and actually, the cells of the body suffer. Pathological fears may seem absurd to many people, but the possessor is in great mental anguish. Of all the emotions, fear is the most powerful. Because this is true, it will yield best to powerful religious suggestion. A new, more powerful association of ideas will break the fear neurosis. We can meditate on and come to believe that God has not given the spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. To those who are possessed with fears, prayer offers an opportunity for honest and free expression, which is a condition to release. One cannot be talked out of his fears, but he may talk them out of himself through silent or audible prayer. Fears suppressed make prisoners of us. Fears expressed release not only the fears, but the person. Prayer offers a therapeutic release from fears. Bernardo W. Overstreet sums it up nicely. In summary, to decrease fear means to increase love, but to increase love must mean also to increase self liking, self acceptance. In behalf of such self acceptance, we can extend basic curiosity to human nature as embodied in individuals everywhere. We can help people to live with their mistakes and shortcomings without being overwhelmed by them and to accept and appreciate their own psychophysical makeup, their bodies no less than their minds. We can finally refrain from trying to exercise such a dictatorship over other people's emotions that they will pretend on the outside and feel guilty on the inside, thereby diluting their capacity for genuine emotional response. All right. I think we're going to stop for now, but this isn't too bad. It doesn't really define what your beliefs about God should be. It just talks about the actual process of prayer and how it can be beneficial. This could be prayer to any God. It's not really about which God it is. So, cool.